Well, good morning. Teenagers did a great job, didn't they? Yeah. This is Emily Harwell. Yeah. She has had knee surgery recently. Yeah. So I'll tell her again for a second time because I told her first service. You can copy Nicole, but there's some things you shouldn't do, right? Yeah, I'll be one of them. So yeah, they did a great job. For about 3 months now, there has been a sign that's outside of. Can I have a little more light in the room? There's a sign that's right outside of my subdivision, and it's been about 3 months now. And this is the sign right here. Seen me. It's on the stop sign. Seen me. Cat, right, report time, location, direction to, and then it gives a phone number. And Philip really wants to send location and time to, like, I've resisted sending text to that particular thing. And also pictures that, I don't know, just in my free time, I just have some time. And I've done some pictures, and here's the latest one, and I really want to send it, but I haven't sent it. I'm kind of resisting the temptation to send this one, right? And this is it. You see the cat? Yeah, I just want to send it to that number and see what happens. Yeah. Saw your cat. It was really good. Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, there are 10 days to Christmas. 10 days. 10 days of Christmas. Tonight, of course, we have a Christmas worship service. The 4 o'clock is filled up. But if you did not sign up, you can come to the second. We still have room in the second, so we'd love to have you. And so that's happening. Also want to let you know that on the 23rd, which is a Monday, 7 o'clock, we'll have Christmas communion. So come here, we'll sing some carols, celebrate the Christmas story, and kind of get in our minds the real meaning for the season right before you get to the 24th and 25th. So that's on the 23rd, 7 o'clock, Monday evening. Hope that you're there. You know, all of you probably have some sort of plans for Christmas, right? You already have them in motion. There's some of you that already thought through that your family is going to have to meet the weekend before Christmas because you can't get together any other time. And there's some of you that's going to meet on the 24th and eat on the 25th and do the normal like 24th, 25th thing. There's some of you in the room that will have like Christmas celebrations the following weekend. Right? It'll be right after Christmas, but that's just when everybody can get there, and that's when it works out with your family. So y'all have all, at some level, planned ahead. Even if you're in the room and you're that rare person that just isn't going to celebrate Christmas this year, I don't know why you wouldn't celebrate Christmas, but you're just not going to do it this year, you have made a plan not to celebrate Christmas. So you have thought forward. This is something that animals don't do. Like your dog isn't thinking about Christmas. It sees a tree. It has no clue what's happening when the day comes, doesn't know what the day is. It's just going to be with you. Your cat doesn't care at all. It doesn't matter what you do with your cat. All your animals, they have not planned for Christmas. They haven't planned to get together with mom and dad. Right? They haven't made any future plans because animals do not really think in the future. They just respond to their environments appropriately. That's all that they do. That's all they do. However, humans who are made in the image of God, we are designed to kind of think in the future. Even if you're a person in this room that's a procrastinator, you have a future plan to procrastinate to the last moment to do anything that you do. You still are a future kind of thinker in that particular regard. So we're heading to 2025, and my recommendation for everybody is to kind of think through 3 things that you want to accomplish in 2025 that will actually impact other people. So you would think about that and then kind of write them down or keep them in your mind, and then next year try to accomplish those things and kind of think in the future. You are designed to do that by God. That way, you do not act like the animals. You are a human. You're totally different. You're a step above. And so you think in the future. So with that in mind, I want you to turn in your Bibles to Colossians chapter 1. And we're going to review something that we did last week. So Colossians chapter 1, that's where we're at. A little review. And the review is to remind us who Jesus is. Who Jesus is. Of course, we covered this last week. We're going to review it. And chapter 1, verse 15 says this. He is the image of the invisible God, the firstborn of all creation. For by him all things were created in heaven and on earth, visible and invisible, whether thrones or dominions or rulers or authorities, all things were created through him and for him. And he is before all things, and in him all things hold together. And he is the head of the body, the church. He is the beginning, the firstborn from the dead, that in everything he might be preeminent. For in him all the fullness of God was pleased to dwell, and through him to reconcile himself all things, whether on earth or in heaven, making peace by the blood of his cross. So that is Jesus. So what I've done is I've taken some of the stuff that we've talked about last week, and I've paraphrased that particular passage. And this is what that sounds like in my paraphrase, okay? We look at the Son and see the God who cannot be seen. We look at the Son and see God's original purpose in everything created. For everything, absolutely everything, above and below, visible and invisible, powers we can't see, and governmental power we can see, everything started in him and finds its purpose in him. He was there before any of it came into existence, and it holds it all together right up to this moment. And when it comes to the church, he organizes and holds it together like a head holds together a body. He was supreme in the beginning, and he is supreme now and forever. He was the first to be resurrected. In fact, he resurrected himself. From beginning to end, he's there, towering far above everything and everyone. So spacious is he, so expansive, that everything of God finds its proper place in him with plenty of room to spare. Not only that, but all the broken and dislocated pieces of the universe, animals and atoms, get properly fixed and put back together, and people who believe in him are put back together, all because of his death and his blood that poured down from the cross. That is an amazing Jesus, isn't it? He is extremely powerful, and he's absolutely incredible. And so with that as a reminder, turn your Bibles to Matthew chapter 2. Matthew chapter 2. Matthew chapter 2. And this is what it says. Now, after Jesus was born. So we pause there a moment to remember Colossians. The person that we just described was born here on this planet. Jesus Christ was born. He came here. The one that holds all things together. That's a remarkable thought. Now, after Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea, in the days of Herod the king, behold, wise men from the east came to Jerusalem, saying, "Where is he who has been born King of the Jews? For we saw his star when it rose and have come to worship him." And when Herod the king heard this, he was troubled, and all Jerusalem with him. And assembling all the chief priests and scribes of the people, he inquired of them where the Christ was to be born. And they told him, "Bethlehem of Judea, for so it is written by the prophet. And you, O Bethlehem, in the land of Judea, are by no means least among the rulers of Judea. For from you shall come a ruler who will shepherd my people Israel." Then Herod summoned the wise men secretly and ascertained from them what time the star had appeared. And he sent them to Bethlehem, saying, "Go and search diligently for the child, and when you have found him, bring me word that I too may come and worship him." And after listening to the king, they went on their way, and behold, the star that they had seen when it arose went before them till it came to rest over the place where the child was. And when they saw the star, they rejoiced exceedingly with great joy. And going into the house, they saw the child with Mary, his mother, and they fell down and worshiped him. Then, opening their treasures, they offered him gifts of gold and frankincense and myrrh. Now, here's what's happening here. Mary and Joseph have decided to follow God and be in God's will, and so they've had Jesus Christ. Joseph is with Mary. They are now married. We need to understand that in this passage, they're already married. And so what they've done is they came to Bethlehem to register. Of course, Jesus was born in a stable, and sometime between then and now, they have found a house, and they're either renting it or they bought it or Joseph built it because he was a carpenter, right? And they are now living inside of that house, and everything is going great. They moved from wherever they were, where people were looking down on them because, they had a baby out of wedlock, and now they're in a town where everybody thinks that they're married, possibly, and life is good. In fact, Joseph probably has a job because you have to have a job to eat. You have to have a job to supply what is needed for your family. You have to have a job in order to have a house. And so Mary and Joseph, they are just living life. Here is Jesus. Jesus, probably by this time, has taken his first steps. Can you imagine that? Like remember when your kids took their first steps? And here is the one that created the universe, taking his first steps. The very person who created the ability in you to take your steps is now for the first time trying to take his. He's pulling up on furniture, he's wobbling. Mary is there trying to get, just like we did, right? Trying to get him, and he's taking his first steps. Look, some of us think that Jesus just popped out of the womb and was like, yeah, I've been doing this for ever, right? But that's not how Jesus did it. Jesus came to be like you and me, and so they rose up. And so there's a lot of great things happening for Mary and Joseph. And then they get a knock on the door. They didn't have doorbells. Like the ring didn't exist. There wasn't oh, Mary, there's some people here. Nope, that didn't happen. Had a knock on the door, and they open the door, and there's these well-dressed men with an entourage right outside of their home. Like, there they are, these wise men. And they say, well, come on in, because they were dressed nice. Come on, you wouldn't let people in your house, right? So they were dressed nice, and they were dressed nice enough to come in. And so they came in, and they worship Jesus. And then not only do they worship Jesus, ladies and gentlemen, they give Jesus gold, frankincense, and myrrh. And in that moment, the net worth of Joseph and Mary at minimum tripled. Gold was very expensive. Myrrh was very expensive. Frankincense was very expensive. They must have had money to get that house that they are in, and now they have even a higher net worth. Everything is going awesome. Because after all, if you're in God's will, everything goes well. Everything does. Like, you're in God's will, and blessings just keep coming and coming and coming and coming and coming, and everything's great, and it's just all good, right? And so here's Mary and Joseph. They're living the life. Here's Jesus. They are the most blessed people on the planet. Like, they're more blessed than you and me. They got to raise their creator. I didn't get to do that. I got stuck with Quinn and Aurora. Right? I love them to death, so that's, it's just comic. But nonetheless, they get to raise the creator of the universe. They are the most blessed people in history. on the planet, right? And so, man, things are going great. And then verse 12. And being warned in a dream not to return to Herod, they departed to their own country by another way. Now, this means that those people stayed with Mary and Joseph that night. And that means that they went to sleep that night. That means that they had a dream that night. And in that dream, they're told not to go back to Herod, not to go that way, to go another way. Now, we don't know if Joseph and Mary know that that's the dream that they had. But what we do know is when they left that morning, they went another way. So it could be that Joseph and Mary didn't even know that they were trying to avoid Herod at all. I mean, that is a high possibility that they didn't know that this dream actually exists. And so that these men went their own way. And all of a sudden, we start understanding that there is an issue about to happen in the text. And we get to verse 13, and it says, Now when they had departed, behold, an angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph in a dream and said, Rise and take the child and his mother and flee to Egypt and remain there until I tell you, for Herod is about to search for the child to destroy him. So everything was going great. They had these great visitors lately, and their net worth just went out the roof. I mean, everything was great. Being in the will of God is absolutely amazing. Joseph goes to sleep, and an angel tells him, Look, y'all need to get up right now, and you need to flee for your life, because Herod is going to come, and he's going to kill your son, and he's going to kill both of you too. So in the middle of the night, Joseph and Mary rise up and they get their stuff together and they flee. They don't walk, they run to Egypt. This is a picture of God on the run. God is running away. God is running from something. You see, most of the time when people run from something, they've done something wrong. Right? For instance, this past summer, I think it was this past summer, my memory is kind of weird when it comes to this kind of stuff, but there was a person that was murdered just right down the road here, and the person left, and they decided in Tennessee to stop at a Sheetz, and that's where they got caught. The reason that they were running was because they did something wrong. Jesus was running, and he hadn't done anything wrong. Joseph and Mary were running, and they hadn't done anything wrong. They were on the run because they did something right. So let me pause here a moment to say this. The will of God is not always blessings, like you would think of a good, fuzzy time. Sometimes the will of God is saving you from something worse and upsetting your lifestyle right now. The will of God is just because something is going wrong as you're trying to live for God or do what he's called you to do, doesn't necessarily mean that you are out of the will of God. It could very much mean that you're right in the center of it, exactly where you need to be. So they're on the run. And in verse 14, it says, And he rose and took the child and his mother by night and departed to Egypt and remained there until the death of Herod. This was to fulfill what the Lord had spoken by the prophet, Out of Egypt I called my son. So this running from someone that was going to kill them was a part of God's plan. It was a part of God's plan for them to run to Egypt. It was a part of God's plan for them to be threatened by Herod. It was a part of God's plan for that to happen. This particular prophecy in Scripture happens because God wanted it to. God said, I will call my son out of Egypt, is the prophecy in the Old Testament. And this is a prophecy where it's one that it has to happen because God wants it to happen. And he's telling you it's going to happen because he wants to. And so this trouble, this disruption, was actually a part of God's plan all along. And I submit to you today, when God has something come up in your life, it's also a part of God's plan. Even if it's horrible. It's a part of God's plan for you. So what were they running from? Well, verse 16, and this doesn't make your Christmas very fuzzy. Then Herod, when he saw that he had been tricked by the wise men, became furious, and he sent and killed all the male children in Bethlehem and in all that region who were 2 years old or under, according to the time that he had ascertained from the wise men. Then it was fulfilled what was spoken by the prophet Jeremiah. A voice was heard in Ramah, weeping and loud lamentation, Rachel weeping for her children. She refused to be comforted because they are no more. Now, there's two different types of prophecies, if you're wondering, because how in the world could God cause this to happen? How could God plan for babies to be murdered in Bethlehem, all the while saving his son and sending him to Egypt? How could that possibly happen? Well, there's two different types of prophecy. One type of prophecy is what God says is going to happen because he wants it to happen. The other type of prophecy is foretelling what someone else is going to happen. Does that make sense? So God knew that Herod was going to do this. God knew that Herod was going to send an army into Bethlehem, and he was going to kill all the babies under 2 years old. God knew that was going to happen. And what God did was he respected that choice, and he sent his son and saved his son and sent him to Egypt. Well, why didn't God step in and save the other children that are in Bethlehem? Why didn't he do that? Why didn't he do that? Why didn't he step in? Well, there's a couple of things here. First of all, this story tells you and I that the perfect Son of God was born into the tragedy of humanity. The perfect Son of God was born into the tragedy that is humanity. You see, God has given you freedom of choice. He's given all of us freedom of choice, mankind freedom of choice. Back in the Garden of Eden, where Adam and Eve were able to choose either to eat of the fruit or not eat of the fruit, he gave them freedom of choice to either do it or not do it. And they did it. And as soon as they took a bite of that fruit, the story of humanity became a dramatic tragedy. And from that point on, people have been making bad choices all along. And Herod made a bad choice. And God, Jesus Christ, was born into the tragedy of humanity. A lot of times people point to God and say, you should have stepped in and stopped this. Can God step in and stop it? Absolutely. I think in a very lighter level. You know, when Nicole hurt her knee, back then in March, wouldn't it have been nice if God would have had the ski lift break down before she got off of it? Like, wouldn't it have been nice if God would have just stopped that from happening altogether? I mean, we've had moments, right, you and me, where stuff has happened and it prevented us from being on the interstate at a particular time where a wreck happened and saved us from that wreck. I mean, we believe that. I believe that. Why in the world didn't God stop, on a very shallow level, why didn't he stop, the ski lift and prevent that from happening? And then I would have still had somebody that cooked and cleaned. Just kind of having fun with it. But I would still had my wife. We had had a normal year, like in that particular regard. I needed her in the middle of the year, and she was just couldn't do anything. Why didn't he stop that? Why not? Well, it is not God's fault that she hurt her knee. I'm going to say that again. It is not God's fault that she hurt her knee. And it is not God's fault that all the evil in this world happens. It is our fault. We look in the mirror. We are responsible for the way that this world is. We are responsible, not God. You see, wouldn't it have been better for the perfect creator of the universe to be born in heaven and not here? I mean, why on earth would someone leave something that's totally perfect and come to this mess? Right? Right? Okay, shake your heads. Like, why in the world would he do that? So, it's not God's fault that bad things happen here on this planet. It is humans that are responsible for everything bad that has happened. And before we point the finger at at God, we need to remember what Herod was and what Herod did, because he's the evil one in the story. And yes, God could have stepped into time, but he chose not to, because he has given man the freedom of choice. And Jesus was born into the tragedy that's called humanity. And he did it to save humanity from their tragedy, to make them something better. That's why he did it. He stepped into it. So the story continues. Verse 19, but when Herod died, behold, an angel of the Lord appeared in a dream to Joseph in Egypt. I would love to have some of Joseph's dreams. Or he needs to quit eating pizza. 1 and 2. Verse 20, saying, rise, take the child and his mother and go to the land of Israel, for those who sought the child's life are dead. When he rose and took the child and his mother and went to the land of Israel, but when he heard that Archelaus was reigning over Judea in place of his father Herod, he was afraid to go there, and being warned in a dream, he withdrew to the district of Galilee. And he went and lived in a city called Nazareth. Nazareth is a dead-end city. Nothing good comes out of Nazareth. It's a dead-end road. If you live there, it's a dead end. You'll never be successful. So that what was spoken by the prophets might be fulfilled, that he would be called a Nazarene. Why did they go live in a dead-end city? Because it was part of the plan. Because it was part of the plan. Now, I'm on Facebook. I see posts on Facebook. I'm not that much on Instagram. Just don't have time. I know the younger people in this room probably don't even use Facebook that much at all, and that's particularly fine, but I use Facebook. And there's something that has been posted on Facebook a couple of times that I just want to show you, that fits into this particular sermon. So it's this little timeline. Sometimes people post a thing like this. Like, can y'all see that? You see it? Okay. That goes across, and then all of a sudden, tragedy happens in their life, and it goes down, right? And there's a little, stuff happening here. And then it goes back up, and then it comes along, and things are going well. And you've probably seen this on Facebook, right? And then all of a sudden, something happens, and it goes down. And then there's some little things like this happening. And then it goes up, right? Up, down, there we go. And then we go across, and it levels out, and then something else happens, and it goes down, and it goes back up, and then it kind of ends level. So some of you have seen this Facebook post before, right? So if you think in terms of God, and you think in terms of Mary and Joseph, here's how this would work, like as a caption up underneath Facebook, if that was something that they actually had, which they didn't. So Mary and Joseph, things are going great. They're right here. Oh my goodness, it's going great. They get amazing amount of wealth right here. And then all of a sudden, Herod's coming against them, and all of a sudden, their life goes down. And so it's a hard time right here. And then they finally get to Egypt and things level out, and then they hear that Herod has died, and then they're able to move back home. So this is absolutely amazing. So while they're moving back home, they realize that Herod's son is actually in charge. And so it's another tough time. So where are we going to live? Well, we are going to live in Nazareth. Oh my goodness, that is a horrible town to live in, but I guess we'll go there because at least we'll be safe. Well, somewhere in Nazareth, they get back up here and they kind of follow along. And that would be what our concept would be of what Joseph and Mary were actually going through. And this whole thing right here is actually based on how we feel about bad times that happen to us, or events that aren't good for us. This is how we feel about all this. So I'm going along great. This is how this works, and I know you're already there. But I'm going along great. Things are going awesome, and then something bad happens. Oh, it's just so bad. And then I'm back up here, and things are going great. Things are going great, and then something bad happens. Something bad happens, and this is kind of the way that we feel about it. So this is how we visualize bad times in our life. But this is how God visualizes times in your life where bad things happen or obstacles get in your way. This is me when I first became a Christian. I'm going along, I'm going really well, things are great, and then all of a sudden, the first obstacle happens. I get through that obstacle, and things are going great, and then, oh no, a second obstacle happens. And then I level out and things are going great. And then I hit another wall. I hit another obstacle and something else happens that I have to deal with. And then I level out and things are going great. And I'm really thankful of this blessed time. And then all of a sudden another obstacle happens. And I get through that and things are going great. And then eventually another obstacle happens. This is how God views the obstacles in your life. You see, the obstacles and the things that happen bad to you in your life are all a part of God's plan. They're all a part of God's plan. And so when you're going along and something happens, like you get a bad health report, that's really just a wall that you're supposed to climb instead of falling down into. The bad time happens and you hit the wall, and what God expects you to do is He expects you to reach up and get onto this plane, because this is how your faith grows. Your faith is here, your obstacle happens, it's placed in your life so that you will grow in your faith, so that you will have a deeper relationship with your Creator. And then you hit another wall, and then you climb that wall and you get here. You see, sometimes, I don't know about you, I've hit some walls that have some pretty good distance to them. Like it's too much for me. Too much for me to try to accomplish, too much for me to try to get to the next level. But I know that's why that's there. So what God expects me to do is He expects me to get a chair, because I can't reach it, because I'm kind of small, get on top of that chair and get up to the next level. Now, some of you, how many of you are scared about this whole thing right here? Yeah. Do you know the same way that you felt just right there is kind of similar to the moment where you're trying to reach up and get to the next level of your faith? You have some type of feeling like you just can't get there. I'm scared I can't achieve. I'm scared I can't overcome this. I'm scared I can't get there. But God expects you to get a chair, to reach, not fall into a pit. He expects you to say, I still trust you, Lord, and I know you're going to help me get through this, instead of falling into a pit. You see, the person that wants you to fall into a pit is Satan. That's who wants you to fall into the pit. And straight up, this thing right here is a little bit of a lie. Because this picture right here represents that when you fall, you will only get back to the same level of faith that you had before you fell. God doesn't want that for you. He is trying to grow you and your faith, and so he puts obstacles in the way for you to do that. You see, when you're reaching up, you might have to grab a chair, you might try it with all your might, but the thing that you have on your side is the creator of the universe that holds all things together. And when you hit this wall right here and you just can't get up and you just can't get to the next level, you pray and God wraps his amazing power around you and he boosts you up to the next level. And when you go along, you're praising him for doing that, and you hit another wall, and you're like, oh my goodness, I cannot fall. God has this in my life, so I'll grow in my faith. I am going to reach. I'm going to reach. Lord, help me get up to that next level. Lord, wrap me in your power so I can make it through this, so that I can overcome the wall that's in front of me and get up here to have a deeper relationship with you. You have the God that holds all things together, that is all powerful, helping you achieve this goal. I'm not Jesus Christ. I'm not. I know that doesn't shock you. I also know that you're very thankful for that. You're very thankful that I'm not Jesus Christ. But what is happening in my life is each time I run into an obstacle and I get up to this level, I become more like him. You see, God's goal for my life is for me to be transformed into the image of his son. And so each time that he does that, I am transformed to be more like Christ. The thing is, it's going to take a resurrection to get me there. Jesus has already raised himself one time. He can raise me, right? He can transform me in a moment in what I need to be body-wise. It's going to take a resurrection to get there. But until that happens, he's going to put things in my life that test my faith so that I transform into the image of his son. So I'm a better person for him here to help save people from the tragedy that is humanity. Isn't that great? This is perspective, ladies and gentlemen. If this is your perspective for how this works, you will fall into depression and anxiety time and time again. But if you look at the obstacle that's in front of you and say, this is part of God's plan. He has a purpose for this. And the number one purpose is for me to grow in my faith, you will reach and make it to the next level. It might be hard. God may have to boost you a lot. You may have to get a couple of chairs and stack them on top of each other and wonder if they're going to fall to get there. But you're going to climb up and make it to the next level. And it's just a perspective, and it keeps a positive kind of vibe on the whole thing that is happening to you. It is all a part of God's plan. So I know the church. I know the people in the church. And there's some people in our church that are going through a tough time that have hit a wall. My encouragement to you this morning is to just keep reaching. Just keep reaching. Keep reaching up. And what might happen is that Jesus, who is way above this level, reaches down his hand, grabs your hand, and just pulls you up to that level. That might be what happened. That might be what happens to you. But you need to keep reaching up, is what you need to do. There's other of you in the room that have gone through a difficult time in your life. It's been very difficult. And now you're right here, and everything's good. Everything's blessed. And you are excited about that. Like you're glad that you're finally here and everything's kind of evened out. Here's what you need to do. You need to enjoy the good time that you have, but you need to pray to God and ask him to prepare you for the next thing that happens. Because this time is where you prepare so that you're ready for this, so you have the faith to reach up and get to the next level. Is everybody with me on this? Yeah. Yeah. So if Jesus Christ had to run from people on this planet because they wanted to kill him, we also need to expect, because we live in that same tragedy, that it is also going to happen to us. But when it does, remember, it's all a part of God's plan, and he just wants a deeper relationship with you. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is very special. Very special. Let's pray.